Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, Wuthering Waves version 3.2 is arriving a lot faster than we thought. Yeah, the live stream feels like it was just yesterday, and now we're getting the full news on pretty much everything when it comes to Sigrika. And so we've already gone ahead, taken a look at her kit. She's looking, frankly, overpowered, and it also turns out that her weapon matches, well, pretty perfectly with what's in her kit to carry that image of overpoweredness forward even more and more. So that's what the focus is going to be on for today, Solsworn Ciphers. And, well, whenever it comes to a weapon breakdown, it's always important to think about, A, how strong is the actual weapon? How does it match up with the character it's a signature for? And, of course, how good is it on other users? And that's a question we're going to be answering today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right on into it. But before we begin, if you're looking to pull for Sigrika, her weapon, or maybe just saving up some lunite for Hiyuki, you'd probably like to save some cash. LD Shop is the perfect way to do that, and I'll tell you why. LD Shop gives you access to huge discounts on virtually everything you can buy in tons of games. For now, let's focus on Wuwa. The monthly pass, which is usually $5, is much less on ldshop.gg, a great deal. To use this discount, simply select the item, click top up, and submit your payment. Then you'll select self top up. For a limited time, you'll get an additional discount when using this method. After viewing the instructions video, simply enter your Kuro login and password on the browser client. This might seem a bit off, but remember that LD Shop has excellent reviews on Trustpilot. You'll then log in and manually redeem your purchased items in the client. The system will then sign you out and erase your login information. Or you can provide your Kuro login information to LD Shop staff and they can complete your order for you. New users can get a 10% discount and an additional 5% using my sponsored link. First-time top-up bonuses are available as well, and spending $80 or more will get you a VIP membership, which can get you a free 30-day lunite subscription. So try LD Shop today. First things first, when it comes to this weapon, we've got to take a look at its aesthetic design. Yeah, I don't think anyone actually thought that this was a fucking gauntlet. Yeah, it looks kind of like more like a rectifier. And when you've seen it actually equipped on Sigrika, it kind of just makes her look like she's like a pit fighter or something. I don't think anyone expected that, especially with her unit design. But yeah, it is one of the nicest looking weapons I think we've ever gotten in the history of the game. I don't care about any of this stuff because it's like a poem that makes no sense to me, so I'm just going to skip past it. And now we're going to take a look at the base stats. Sigrika's weapon over here kind of tells a story to me with its base stats. She is going to be one of the units with the highest ceilings in the game. And the reason for that is very simple. Her weapon is critical damage, and that is actually one of the biggest buffs that she has for like her min-maxing that other units just don't have. For example, right, Amith is a character who's kind of like the opposite of what's going on over here. If you take a look at Amith and her weapon gives crit rate. This is actually kind of bad for her. The reason for that is simple. Amith's Echo set gives her a shit ton of crit rate, and so she has like 44% at a baseline from her Echo set and her weapon. Sigrika, on the other hand, is going to be using a very, very, very similar Echo set called, well, sound a true name, and this one also gives crit rate, but this is what it means, right? And this is kind of like the big difference over here. Sigrika can essentially run a crit damage forecast like you're seeing over here, use her Echo set to supplement her crit rate, and with a really, really, really good build, she'll be able to hit like 75% crit rate, maybe more like 70, and then have like 330% critical damage or something like that. That's what I mean by a higher ceiling as a whole. And that means that you can have a lot more fun and a lot more flexibility with how you're building her echoes. Because you can also just decide, hey, if you want higher crit rate, you can just run a crit rate forecast too, but you also have the option of min-maxing to have a crit damage forecast, a crit damage weapon, and then use this echo set's very, very nice effect to get the rest of the crit rate that you're going to need to have a good ratio. So that's one of the big sort of appeals of having her signature. That's one of the big sort of appeals of pulling it, is that, yeah, maybe combine it with a Shorekeeper as well for the third team slot on her team. She has the potential to do a lot of damage and also have one of the most absurd crit ratios in the game. However, she does have a higher base attack weapon too, so that means the crit damage isn't as high as maybe like a 72% that you would see on like a Carlotta or Cantarella weapon or something like that. So that is something to keep in mind. Other units like Carlotta, might be able to actually have higher critical damages, but then lower base attack, right? Just based off of the different values that you're seeing over here. So that is something to keep in mind, just when it comes to overall comparisons of numbers between all those different DPS characters. So that's going to be the base stats. As you can see, it does present a very, very, very interesting value proposition, specifically for Sigrika, because that Echo set is kind of cracked. Now, let's get into the weapon effect, and this is where stuff is going to get a little bit spicy. Here we go. Sunward is going to be the name of the skill. First part is that it's going to increase your attack by 12%. Very, very, very typical sort of buff that you see on pretty much every weapon is either 12% attack or 12% attribute damage bonus. But this is where the real meat of this ability is. Casting an intro skill grants echo skill, grants 32% echo skill damage amplification for 15 seconds. And when dealing echo skill damage, arrow damage ignores 10% of the target's defense. So, as you can see over here, 32% amplification is a lot, but there is a stat that this weapon is sorely missing. Any sort of damage percent. Yes, all this has is damage amplification and defense ignore. It doesn't have any actual, like, echo skill damage built in. It doesn't have any real arrow damage bonuses built in either. But the reason for this is very simple, and this is why this weapon is going to be so fucking good on Sigrika. Sigrika has possibly the most damage buffs I've ever seen built into her kit. Let me just show you this Blessing of Runes ability over here. Each stack of Blessing of Runes, and she can get up to 6 stacks, grants 3% arrow damage and 3% echo skill damage bonus. When she reaches 6 stacks, she gains an additional 30% increase in arrow damage and echo skill damage. So it's like 18% of each. Then it goes up to like 48% of each. And then for every 1% of her ER above 125, she gains 2% echo skill damage up to 25% additional ER at 150 or 50% echo. You're probably seeing what's going on over here. She has like hundreds of percentage in damage bonuses that are like all stacking up with each other because arrow damage stacks on top of the echo skill damage. So that's just looking crazy. And almost all of her big attacks deal echo skill damage. So it's not like you're missing out on, you know, like amplification or damage bonuses anywhere, if we're frankly going to be honest. And this alone is probably enough to tell you that, yes, having amplification just by itself is enough. But then she's even got the ability, right, to, like, increase her damage multipliers as well. And then, you know, get a minor amount of amplification if she's in her more, like, free-to-play teams. That's already looking crazy, right? But the thing is that she also really, really, really wants a character called Chuyan on her teams as well. And, well, guess what Chuyan does? He provides 20% echo skill over here on his weapon. Then he provides, well, let's just be honest here, 16% on his echo skill, or on his Sonata set. Not a huge amount. But then he has 30% crit damage over here, and then 30% echo skill damage over here. You're probably seeing what's happening over here. The damage bonuses, as you add them all up, get absolutely insane. And we haven't even talked about the damage bonuses that Sigrika gets from her goddamn Sonata set, because, well, guess what, guys? Sound a True Name also comes with arrow damage, 25% over here, 15% from the secondary effect, 10% from here, also the crit rate. And then the main slot echo you're going to be using, Nameless Explorer, well, this guy just gives 32% total damage bonuses too. You probably see what's going on. Yeah, like, this character probably sums up to, with all the different damage buffs that they can have total, like, I don't know, like, fucking 200+%. So when you're running that much additional damage percent, right, just from existing, remember, you don't have to roll for any of these, unless you're considering pulling gacha weapons like Chuyan's weapon as roll. You don't have to roll for any of these. They're just there. They just, like, exist. And so the end result, guys, is that her weapon, in this circumstance, not having any damage buffs is not a big deal. In fact, you might not even need them because of how many damage buffs are just built into her kit from her existing. And the main thing when it comes to optimizing Sigrika and making her work is the fact that you want 50% ER on her. Wait, let me go back to Blessing of the Runes over here. You want 50% ER on her. And basically, instead of running damage percent rolls, you know, like basic attack for a Luke or liberation damage for an Ameth, You want 10% ER rolls for Sigrika, and you want ER rolls on every single piece to be able to reach that 50%, and of course, basically translate that into echo skill damage. That's kind of what it is. ER rolls for a Sigrika are the same exact fucking thing, the same exact thing as rolling like a damage percent roll for a character's intended damage type. That's kind of the translation over here. It does make a decent amount of sense once you think about it. But a lot of people are probably going to have to re-roll some echoes and throw away some pieces that they originally thought were going to work quite well. You can also run the alternative of just being like a gigantic pussa in your build, as I like to say, and you could run like an ER3 cost, but this is just like an admission on your end that you're like a weak-willed person. And so do keep in mind that's always going to be an option, but you will be judged if this is something that you decide to do, because like, yes, this will be a shortcut to getting that ER damage percent, and I suppose it could actually work out if you're able to substitute the ER rolls with attack percentage rolls, but why don't you just get attack percentage rolls, ER, and double crit on top of it? Yeah, why don't you just do that? Because you're pulling Sigrika in the first place, and she's also one of the more unnecessary characters in the game in the first place. And so if you're pulling her, why aren't you going to optimize her? Because it's not like you need her, because she's kind of like another arrow damage dealer in a game where we have like 17 million arrow damage dealers, right? Yeah, that's I'm just giving you some food for thought. Just know that she's gonna have a bunch of different builds that she'll be able to work on. She'll be able to clear on them. But like I said before, this unit's ceiling is incredibly high. And with how high this unit's ceiling potentially is, this weapon giving that 32% amp, which is rare, right? Unless you're going to be using Arrow Rover on her teams. Cheon only gives 50, right? And so having that additional 32% over here has the potential to be quite insane. The defense ignore, like I've said before, I feel like 10% defense ignore is not actually a real stat. I don't think it's actually real, so I don't value it very much at all in like poll conversations. But this over here, combined with how insane her kit is and all these damage buffs, remember the teammates that she's going to be best in slot with, yeah, this has potential to go absolutely crazy. Her weapon having a higher base attack is also quite nice because, as you can probably see from the teammates I talked about, there's not a lot of raw attack buffers even in there. And there's a chance that even in her best in slot teams, she's not going to have a lot of raw attack buffs too. So having this higher value one could actually be way better for her than originally anticipated. So now it's time for us to have some conversations. What if you're somebody that wants Sigrika, but you don't want her weapon? Well, I'm just going to be honest. The conversation should be, if you want Sigrika, but you don't want her weapon, maybe you should reconsider your decision to pull Sigrika. Just saying, because Sigrika herself is not really like a high-value pull. Well then, let's see what options you have available in this very, very odd circumstance that you might find yourself in by taking a look at all the different gauntlets in the game. Yeah, this is just a stat stick, right? Like, Luke's weapon, Daybreaker Spine, is just going to be a stat stick over here. You're not going to be able to activate any of its fucking effects, because she's not a Spectro. You already know what I'm talking about. Moongazer Sigil. I mean, technically, you might be able to get something out of it, because, like, I do think Sigrika does. I mean, let me just see what type of damage her liberation deals. I mean, I know this is kind of dumb, but there might be somebody out there that wants to do it. Let's see her liberation real fast. No, that's echo skill damage. Get fucked. Anyways, yeah, this is not going to do anything for you, aside from being a stat stick. Pulsation Bracer. Yeah, you're not going to be able to activate this one either. It's just going to be a stat stick. Blazing Justice. Well, I guess you'll get the stat stick component of 12% attack, and you'll ignore 8% of their defense, but you don't get anything else out of it. Tragic Yeah, this thing's a tragic comedy, isn't it? Yeah, nah, this ain't doing shit for you either. Verity's Handle. No, remember, her liberation deals echo skill damage. And then Abyss Surges. This is the most fucked up part. Abyss Surges is, like, low-key the best one. Like, out of all the 5-star weapons in the game, Abyss Surges is low-key the best one because it gives that ER. Remember? And ER is essentially, for Sigrika, echo skill damage. And, like, she has crit built into her set. So the attack substat is... the attack main stat is actually not bad. And so, honestly, I think she's going to be surprisingly decent with these. And if you, for some godforsaken reason... like, it gives half of her ER bonus at max. I'm not even joking. It gives half of her ER requirement at max level if you were to syntonize it. It's like, it's not terrible. And she deals a lot of basic attacks. Like she does them a lot in her rotation. So it's not like the effect is useless. You could do it. I don't think it's terrible, but it's also like, yeah, you should probably just get her signature. But yes, she might actually be the best user of Abyss Surges in the game if you, for some reason, have a copy of this. But I do not recommend maxing this. I recommend you just get her signature, or you kind of reconsider how much you're going to invest in a unit if you're going to go like halfway like this with Sigrika. I think she's meant to be like the Lamborghini of Uwa. I'm not even joking. This character has such a high ceiling that's so ridiculous. Like, she has so much potential to be, I think, like, the most... She's gonna ruin your tuner balance, put you in debt, but, like, yeah, if she's properly built and has a min-max build, she might be the strongest unit on your account. Heavy investment required, and so because of that, my suggestion is, yeah, you should probably just get her weapon, too. This is shit. That's doo-doo water. Yeah, that ain't happening. Dark garbage. I mean, like, maybe you could decide to do some dumb shit, like... No. Yeah, you're not... Yeah, just don't even think about the ER weapons. That's not happening. I think one thing that I would have liked to see that would have really sealed the deal on Sigrika's weapon is, instead of attack by 12, I kind of would have liked to see, like, ER instead. Yeah, I kind of wished there was ER on here as like the passive stat, kind of like Abyss Surges. Yeah, I would have preferred that, so she only needs like 4 ER rolls instead of 5 if you're not going to run an ER 3 cost. There's no free-to-play weapon for her. Are you just retarded, or are you not listening to anything I fucking said? Like, there's no way you just asked this fucking question, right? There's no way you just asked this question, right? Especially right after what we just talked about. I'm going to assume you're stupid, because I just spent like 4 minutes talking about Abyss Surges. Like that was literally what I just talked about. What's wrong with you? Anyways, as you all can probably see, not a lot of options. Main one is Abyss Surges, and it's going to be better than pretty much every other 5-star that you see on here. Because I do think this is a circumstance where the passive ER bonus and even the attack main stat, they're not too much of a... They're actually a benefit to her in some ways, and they don't drag her build behind like it does for other units. So yeah, those are going to be my suggestions. But once again, if you're pulling Abyss Surges for her, you probably have more issues like... You'll probably have more issues to worry about on your account than even, like, pulling this character in the first place. And now, it's time for us to have the next conversation. Who else can use this? Well, you probably guessed by the fact that Sigrika doesn't really use anybody else's weapon. And so, not many other characters are going to be able to use hers. Because this is the thing. You need to be somebody that deals echo skill damage to gain any benefit at all from this weapon. And honestly, if there ever is another gauntlet echo skill damage dealer, this thing should be fine on them. All they'll miss is like the 10% arrow damage defense ignore, because it just gives outright 32% echo skill damage amplification on intro skill. That should be accessible to every single unit in the game. It's just there's no gauntlet echo skill damage dealers. So yeah, that's the issue over here. There's no gauntlet echo skill damage dealers. None. Not a single one. They don't exist. They're not on the roster. So it's kind of just like, well, the possibilities are out there in the future if there ever is another gauntlet echo skill damage dealer. But as of now, no, it's just not something that's going to have any level of uses at all. It's just going to be a stat stick on other units, much like how other signatures are a stat stick on Sigrika. So yeah, that's the unfortunate way that the cookie crumbles for this one. But like I said before, it also makes the pulling decision for whether or not you actually get this thing a lot more simple. Do you want to build one of the highest investment units in the game that has a lot of potential to be one of the strongest units on your account? If it's yes, then go for the weapon, and of course, go for Sigrika, and then go for Chuyan, and then go for Chuyan's weapon. And you will probably have one of the strongest teams in the game. It'll be fucking nuts, right? That's what you're fully capable of. But if you're wanting to save, you like the idea of Hiyuki in 3.3 or the Cyberpunk collab in a future version, because that shit should be coming up soon. Well, let's be honest here. You're probably just going to be skipping Sigrika entirely in the fucking first place, and so the weapon's not even in conversation. And so if you're watching this video and even having this discussion, you probably already made the decision to pull her. And if you're going to pull her, just pull her weapon too. So yeah, I don't really think there's any other way to really talk about that one. Now, materials. Yeah, everyone knows what they are, so I don't think we need to spend too much time on this. But yeah, that's going to be the discussion over here, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully it was helpful in your decision. But like I said before, this is more of like a should you pull Sigrika video. And I'm going to be honest, if you have Chuyan and you have a signature and stuff like that, I don't see any reason for you not to at least consider pulling her. Because she does look like she's actually going to be broken. Let me know what you all thought. Peace out.